This one's going to be personal, obviously. I guess they're all personal. Joseph Talbot, question is, I'm seeing tons of MGTOW, I don't know what that is, MGTOW, Red Pill, I know what that is, and other men's videos on YouTube warning of all the women to avoid. I want to hear about what it's like when you find a woman you can trust. You're the man for that story. I am, actually. Thank you. When I ask people, when people ask me about what it's like living in California before I got married, I said, and I think this is really as pithy as it gets, the situation in Los Angeles and among liberals, at least in very, very blue territory, the thing about dating out there is that the men are weak and the women are crazy. And the crazy women make men weak, and the weak men make women crazy, and men going their own way run from romance. Okay. Wow, this is a great. Oh yeah. Okay, men going their own way. I did promise I would not mention, and I'm not going to mention the name of it. But the more I promote this idea of doing these video game videos, and the more I talk about video games, the more convinced I am about this. 100% convinced of it. And I'm going to talk about young men because it's primarily young men. My thesis, and I think the evidence for this gets stronger every day, certainly gets stronger every time I have to make this pitch. My thesis is this. Young men in America today call themselves socialists, vote socialist, do all the right things, go to the right events, walk out on the gun protests and stuff, call themselves liberals, and believe it. Believe it. They believe it. It's not like they're pretending. In the world, they're liberals because they have to be. What the hell happened? Hello, there we go. They have to be. So, being conservative in California may not be as true for some of you, but for those of you that live in blue state areas, you realize how suppressive and how intimidating and how violent the left is. You can't just go to a restaurant and say loud enough to be heard that I think Donald Trump's doing a great job. People will throw coffee in your face. I mean, they really will. You can say it, but that's what they'll do. So part of the left-wing movement to re-engineer people is, so this is actually going to be a pretty compelling argument and story, so hang on here. If you are a weak person, if you're a beta male or you're a feminist or somebody who's filled with resentment and envy and wants power, but you don't have the energy, the smarts, or the guts to take it, not that anyone should take it, there are certain things that you have to destroy. If you want a socialist society filled with pliable people who will do what you tell them to do because you've got this genetic defect, that means you have to tell people what to do. When you have a goal, when you're lazy and stupid and you want to take over society and have people do what you tell them to do, then in order for that to happen, you have to create a society that is more lazy and stupid than you are. And so what one of these targets is individuality. You can't have individuals. The whole purpose of the self-esteem movement, which was we're going to give everybody a participation trophy, no one's going to win, nobody's going to lose, everybody gets an equal participation trophy, was designed presumably to build people's self-esteem, but looking back on it for 20 years now, I realize, no, what it's designed to do is it's designed to make sure that nobody stands out. It's designed to make everybody an absolutely equally bland cog in the machine. There are no winners, there are no losers. There's no heroism, there's no cowardice, there's nothing. It's simply just a giant heat-dead entropy exit group of mush that they can control. And so certain things have to be destroyed. And in order to get people to that state. You have to destroy a number of things, but the most important thing you have to destroy really is individuality, and this is why the attack goes to so-called toxic masculinity, because this is a society built for individuals, built by individuals for individuals, and individuality is the end of the left. The entire philosophy of progressivism is one giant Emperor's New Clothes case of peer pressure, where everybody convinces everybody else that they see something that they don't personally see in order to feel like they fit in and they belong. This is an overwhelming psychological impulse for people. I was at an event recently. Somebody told me about an experiment that I heard that I should have been using this whole time, but I didn't. But basically, they did an experiment where the subject went into a room full of people. Everybody else in the room, let's say 12 people, and let's say a scientist or whatever. Everybody else is in on the experiment. The entire experiment is judging the reaction of the one person that goes in who's not part of the experiment. And so what they do is they basically say, have a board with two pieces of string on it, and one of them is this long, and one of them is that long. And they go to the first person and say, which one of these is longer? And the first person points to the bottom one. And the subject looks at this. The guy's out of his mind. Are you kidding? So they go to the next person. Which one of these is longer? And they point to the shorter one. And he's mystified. And then they go to the third person. They ask him, which one of these is the shorter one? Or the longer one, rather. And he points to the short one. And then they do this 7 or 8 or 9 times. And these people are professional actors. So after watching 9 or 10 people clearly choosing something that is obviously not correct. Here's a length of string. Here's another length of string. Which one of these is longer? The bottom one is. There's no question about it. It's not a report or anything. It's right in front of your eyes. And he's taking this thing from person to person to person, and every single person says, oh, the bottom one is the longer one. And by the time you get to the test subject, what's going through his mind is this. The first time somebody says the wrong answer, he thinks the guy's an idiot or is a joke. Second time, it's like, come on, really 2 idiots in a room? Third time, it's like, what's going on here? Fourth time, is this some kind of joke? Fifth time is like, no, these people are serious. Sixth time is like, good God. Eighth time, ninth time is like, there's something wrong with me. It's got to be me. There's got to be something wrong with me, because everybody here agrees that the bottom string is longer. And all these people can't be wrong. They can't all be wrong. And all of them agree there's wrong. Since these 12 people can't possibly all be wrong, there's got to be something about me. It's the Aish-line test, Sorticus. There's got to be something wrong with me. So that when they finally get to the guy who's the actual subject of the experiment, and they say to him, which one of these is the longer string, he will point to what is clearly the short string, because he's convinced that that is the answer that everybody else is coming up with, and he doesn't want to look like the one idiot who says something different, but he knows in front of his eyes. And what happens is, psychologically, this is the point, psychologically, a person will become convinced that there's something wrong with them, that they are suffering some kind of mental breakdown, because who are you going to trust? Everybody in the room or your own lying eyes? And so it takes a person of extreme moral courage, believe it or not, to say, I don't know what the rest of you people are smoking, but there's no question that the top string is the longer string. And the reason I know that is because they're sitting next to each other. Let's get a ruler. Most people don't do that. They don't. So they agree. So all of this stuff comes down to agreeing with people. And so when you have that kind of world where those pressures are there, everybody agrees to believe this nonsense, then the one thing you cannot have is heroes. You can't have a hero, and you can't have a free thinker, and you can't have a person who's so confident of themselves that they're willing to stand up and say you're all wrong, all of you. And that has been defined as toxic masculinity. It is now in the American Psychiatric Association diagnostic thing. Toxic masculinity is defined as a mental disorder. And the mental disorder leads to activities like risk-taking, um, senses of individuality, you know, personal gain and achievement, selfishness, all this other stuff, right? Um, they so they have to destroy this, and so life for young men in America today is one real world life, is one continuous 8 hour long ash string experiment where they are told that they must believe stuff that they know is not correct. And they're told they have to behave in a way that they don't want to behave in. And as I've refined this pitch, I've been hitting the same point again and again and again. The left has told them all of these things. They believe it. It's not that they don't believe it. They believe it. So what's happening is young men in this country are leaving the world that we live in. They're leaving the world of universities and the world of politically correct cities and all the rest of it. And the second that they get out of there, the instant that they have time on their own, they go right into their room, they lock the door basically, and they go into a world where they get to act like conservatives. All of the young men of this country are spending more and more time in video games because the world of video games is more real than the world of the millennials up here in the so-called real world. It's more real. And let me give you some examples. They released a game not too long ago, excellent game. I haven't played it, but it looks really, really good. And it's a part 2, it's a Western called Red Dead Redemption. And it's a video game where you get to be in the Old West. And in the first 3 days, Red Dead Redemption sold $550 million. $550 million in the first 3 or 4 days for this video game. And when I tell old Republicans, because most of us are old, when I tell old Republicans that all these people who are voting for Bernie Sanders and out there blue as can be, when I tell them that the reason they don't see them anymore, the reason that they can't rip them away from the computer screens in the room behind the door, is because they're busy playing cowboys and Indians. When I tell them that, they look at me with the same look that I had when I first realized that this is exactly what's happening. All of these progressive young men are going into a world where they can play cowboys and Indians without people giving them a load of crap over it. They get to play cowboys and Indians, and they do it by themselves because if they did it in public, they would never hear the end of it. Ever. So these young men who are not allowed to do anything, they're told all their lives they're potential rapists, and it's just a matter of time, and they're evil for being males, and they're evil for being white, and they're evil for being Christians. Remember all of these things, and they don't fight it. I don't blame them. They know the pressure that's aligned against them and all the social media, so they go, no, you're right, terrible, it's just terrible, I'm trying my best to be, as woke as I can be in there. And they're doing all this other stuff. And the second they can get away from these monsters that are lying to them this way, the second that they can get some of their own time and their own money, they lock that door and they fire up that machine and they go into a world where they get to drive fast and shoot things and blow things up and chase hot women and do all of the things that any normal person wants to do, because you cannot beat the biology out of people. You cannot. You cannot beat the biology out of people. No matter how hard the left tries, you can't. So young men have been told that you can't be men. You have to be these little defective girls. They say, okay, well, if that's the rules, that's the rules. And then slam, I'm going to spend the next hour jumping out of transports in Normandy in 1944, and I'm going to go on the ground, and I've had this experience with my own group, with people like Foghorn and so on. I just, most of the time I'm just listening. I'm listening to people doing manly things that are exciting, like, okay, we've got a guy, there's a guy behind that building, somebody move to the right, try and flank him, we'll get some inflighting, okay, suppressive fire. And when I tell old people, old Republicans who have wonder what happened to their grandson, never see him anymore, ever, gone, lost, and they're convinced that they're lost and that these video games are awful and terrible and so on. And I walk up to these people and I tell a veteran who came up to me at the last event, or 2 events ago, a veteran comes up to me and says, I don't know, this is after the pitch, I don't know what happens to my grandson. We used to be very close, but we don't see him anymore. We don't talk to him. I just really worry about him. And I said, sir, I'd be willing to bet you a large amount of money that this guy was a Marine. I said, I'll bet you anything. Your grandson is in that room behind the door being a Marine. I bet you anything that's what he's doing. He's shooting bad guys. He's shooting Nazis, or he's shooting down airplanes in over Britain, or he's doing something like that. He is doing the heroic kind of stuff that you actually did, and he's doing it in a virtual world because he's not allowed to do it out here. He's not allowed to. So that's what he does, and that's why you can't get him away from it. And if you lived in the world that he lives in, you would do exactly the same thing. If you could not be the person that you are biologically wired to be in this world, and there's somebody offering a world where you could be an actual human being, you would do it. You would do it. And I thought the guy was going to cry. He was so pleased to hear that his grandson had not left the earth. And he asked me, how do I reach him? I said, now, I can't make any promises, sir. I don't know, but I'd be willing to bet you. I can essentially guarantee you that whatever game he's playing in there, he's got weapons for sure. But very likely he's playing Call of Duty or Battlefield or something, and he's being historical. He's playing your life. He's trying to be you. He's fighting bad guys and Nazis and Japs and all the rest of this stuff that's told that we can't do out in the real world. And he said, "How can I reach him?" I said, "Well, I think if you were to talk to him, I would simply say, I wouldn't try to chum him up and ask him about what the game he's playing, but I would basically let him know that you are in on the secret now, and I would say to him, I don't know if this is of any interest to you or anything, but I'm sure you must be doing a lot of things in there with, covering fire and squad tactics and movement and flanking, suppressing fire and all that other stuff. And I actually got trained with that in real life. So, if you ever want to talk about tactics, just come let me know, because I think I could make you a better player." So men are in this movement, men going their own way. They're going their own way because a small number of people who have very serious mental issues. I don't generally like the entire idea of saying that your political opponents are insane, but without question, the most severe feminists and the weakest of these beta males are exceedingly neurotic people, and they are convinced against all evidence that things should be a certain way, and they're simply not willing to surrender that belief. So they're in a state of acute denial, and they are determining the rules that the rest of these young people have to live by, because they are the loudest and the rudest. And they're getting what they want, but you can't beat the biology out of people. You can't. You cannot. So they go to a world where they get to be men. Somebody asked me at one of these events, after I was done more or less with the pitch for the Aurora project, they said, "Well, Bill, this is all great about men and stuff, but what about women?" I said, "Well, first of all, there's a lot of female game players, a lot of women playing games, but I can't tell you about their psychology. I can tell you the effect that this will have on young women is simple, and that is that if you can get behind this project, the way we're going to affect women is we're going to make a lot better men. We're going to make better men, because they are good men, and they're very good men, and they want to be heroes, and they're not allowed to be, and it's a crime. And I've been very hard on millennials, and I continue to be hard on them, but I always have to remind myself that they didn't ask to be raised this way. This wasn't their choice. They didn't ask to not have a who won the baseball game lunatic. One of my favorite things I've heard about this self-esteem movement is that the adults will say, "Well, we're not going to keep score, because if we keep score, there will be people who lose, and those people will suffer self-esteem loss, and therefore they'll become murderers or rapists. So therefore, we're not going to keep score, and when the game is over, everybody is an equal winner." And the person that told me this said, so the adults don't keep score. But you know who keeps score? The kids keep score. They keep score. They know exactly what the score is. And if it's 13-0, they know it's 13-0. And so the whole thing is nuts. So what you've done now is you've created a world where young men are, there's no way for them to be who they are and date people of their own age group. At least that's what they've been told, and that's what they feel. And I don't blame them one bit. That's what it's like out here. You know, Natasha and I talked to an immigration attorney who looked like he could actually definitely do something about Natasha's daughter coming to visit just on a tourist visa, and we haven't seen her. Natasha hasn't seen her for 3 or 4 years. And this guy said, no problem, we can definitely do it. I said, great. He said, send me the information. And I sent him the information, and I sent it from bill@billwhittle.com. And during the time I was there, he made a couple remarks about Trump, but I just said, he's entitled to his opinion, I don't care. But undoubtedly, he decided to look at bill@billwhittle.com and realized that I was a conservative, so he never answered the email. He never answered repeated replies to the email. I basically had a chance to tell my wife and my daughter-in-law that this looked really, really good. My wife was actually at the meeting. And then I had to tell her that all of this hope that we'd raised is apparently gone because of this kind of political peer pressure and intimidation. And so, to some degree, I know what they're going through. And there it is. So young men are talking about men going their own way because the feminists have ruined everything. The feminists, not just the feminists, the beta males. They destroyed Star Wars on purpose. You can't have a young guy be a fighter pilot. You can't have what's his name? Poe Dameron going out there and doing brave things and using courage to destroy enemies. He's got to be an out-of-control hothead, and the women have everything under control with their pink hair and their plans and their sophisticated strategies that ends up, of course, getting everybody killed. But nevertheless, so they retreat from the real world into the world of computer games and movies and Star Wars. So now the left has gone into Star Wars to pursue them, to teach them that they think in the wrong things. They bring all of this feminism and social justice warrior stuff into Star Wars and destroy Star Wars, ruin the religion of post-Christian America, destroy that religion for them, and then they start going into computer games. And one of the computer games that they went into was the Battlefield series, which is extremely popular, billions of dollars in revenues. The game probably costs $100 million to make. It's a very, very expensive AAA game series. And I want to say Battlefield 1, which was set in World War I, made something like, I want to say $4 billion total, something like that. Well, they had the next game coming up, which was Battlefield 5. And Battlefield 5 was going to be a World War II game where the graphics were much better and, as always, improving and stuff. And they had very high expectations for this. And the progressive game studio executives put out a trailer, and I highly recommend this. I might see if I can grab it for next time. The game trailer, teaser trailer for Battlefield 5, showed a resistance fighter on the ground, and these two Tiger tanks come through a battered down wall in a French village, and this person is backing up as these two tanks come at her from either side because you realize, my God, it's a woman. And she continues to back up, and then she gets up, and you find out, you can only imagine how good you must have felt when you find out that she gets up. She's not only a woman, she's a woman missing an arm. She has a prosthetic arm, basically a wooden arm with hooks, and she grabs a baseball bat wrapped with barbed wire, and using her prosthetic arm, beats a 6'5" SS soldier to death with this thing. And they're calling this the World War II experience, which, as anybody who served on the Western Front in World War II knows very well, that the number of one-armed women in combat was at least 50%. And then this guy, when gamers said, look, this is a historical game, you're doing a World War II game, and we're playing it because we're fans of World War II, and I'm sorry, but it wasn't every other person in the platoon was not a woman in World War II. This was what the gamers said. They said, this is not historical. It pulls us out of the game. We want to have a World War II experience, and having every other person being a woman and hearing all these high-pitched voices calling for ammunition takes us out of the game. The response of the studio was, you're an uneducated, stupid, bigoted, ignorant misogynist. There were, in fact, women in World War II. To which these well-educated gamers said, well, if that's the case, there certainly were. Why don't you include a character who's a Russian sniper? Because the Russians had sniper units of some women, but this idea that every other woman in the 82nd every other person in the 82nd Airborne is a woman is just ridiculous. So the gamers, being reasonable people, said, hey, how about this? Can we have a button? Because the characters are moving, it's just a matter of what skin we put on them. So can we just have a button that says we would like historical accuracy, and that turns the female characters into male characters? And the response from the studio was, one of the developers wrote, would you like us to put that above or below the button that says white people only? Okay, so we know what they think. We know what our political class thinks of us, and now gamers and young people know what the studios think about them. They were nothing but reasonable, and they kept getting this attitude. And when the game had its pre-release party, somebody snuck out some pictures, and all of the people who are in the studio making the game had put up on the wall quotations from gamers who were complaining about the fact that this was historically inaccurate. And they were just talking about how incredibly advanced they were morally compared to these knuckle-dragging savages that actually pay their bills. So when enough heat came on about this, the person who ran that studio, it was it EA? Was it a United EA game, Electronic Arts game? I think it was EA. So EA is a very, very big studio, and they hire individual studios. EA is a giant conglomerate, and they pay individual studios to produce games. And I think it was DICE. I think it was DICE was the company that was doing this World War II game. So basically, the outcry gets large enough, and the person who's the president of DICE, the head developer, basically says, well, I'll tell you why we did it. We were running early alpha on the game, and my young daughter, who plays Fortnite, came to me and said, Dad, why is it that I can't play this World War II game? There's nobody for me to play. There's nobody in this game who looks like me. And the second he said, my daughter said this, I said, the guy's lying through his teeth. But this young 30-something or other guy who's a millionaire, multimillionaire game developer said, how am I supposed to answer my daughter? What am I supposed to say to her when she asks me a question like that? That's why we put women soldiers in the game. My first response was, well, you could say to her that the men were jumping out of airplanes and getting killed so that the woman wouldn't have to. You could start there and work your way down. But anyway, it's a bunch of bullshit. It wasn't, his daughter didn't ask that. He could have said, well, honey, because during World War II, women were not in combat. And game players don't have any problem with future games where women are playing. They don't have any problem with Lara Croft. They don't have any problem with Sigourney Weaver and all the rest of it. So basically, what the game studio said was, hey, we're putting out this game with these women soldiers in World War II, and you can either buy it or not buy it. So they didn't buy it. The thing was expected to make $2 or $3 billion. It made like 400,000 or something. They didn't buy it. And then they applauded the fact that they didn't buy it. And when people wonder why Solo movie tanked, I know, Eric, it's a good movie. I liked it too. But the reason it tanked was because there was a concerted effort to boycott that movie on the part of the hardcore fans because of what they had done with The Last Jedi. They said, all right, if that's how you want to treat it, that's what we're going to do. So if this is not the biggest opportunity for us, I don't know what is. The entire young group of people that are blue as the blue can be. They're blue ocean from coast to coast, vote for liberals, but they hate liberals. They hate them. They hate the social justice warriors. They have ruined the real world for them, and then they ruined Star Wars and the fantasy worlds for them, and then they ruined computer games for them, and they're ruining everything, and they hate them. They hate them. And we're just sitting here pretending like it's not going on. This blue millennial generation is leaving this world to play video games so they can be conservatives. And they want to do the things that young men want to do because you can't beat the biology out of people. And women want men like that. And the closing argument on the face of all this is simply this. They did a survey recently where they asked the most radical young women social justice warriors, the pink-haired lunatics that are, cheering on Antifa, those people. And they asked them, what are you attracted to? What do you think about the men that hang out with you? What do you think about all of these feminist men and all of these gamma males or omega males who are down with feminism and completely woke and all the rest of it? What do you think about them? And these young, ultra left-wing social justice warriors said, don't really do much for me. Which is proof that no matter how angry you are, no matter how bitter you are, no matter how much you have a burning desire to get even with men, and on the part of the young males, no matter how beta you are, how woke you are, doesn't matter how much granola you munch, you cannot beat the biology out of people. The women who are pushing the hardest to completely emasculate all men are the ones that admit that they have no interest in emasculated men. So, progressivism and liberalism is in fact a mental disorder, and it is a disorder brought about by an emotional need that is so overwhelming that it overcomes reason and the evidence of your own eyes. And they then go ahead and create a world for themselves where everybody is reinforcing the same lies. And when somebody speaks the truth, it's very much like the boy saying that the emperor's not wearing any clothes. The whole world comes down if somebody speaks the truth, so that person has to be immediately isolated and destroyed. Martina Navratilova is probably the biggest activist for gay rights when the gay rights movement was really mattering. And she said, no, you can't put me up against a man who thinks he's a woman. It's not fair. He'll kick my ass. And that's a statement of a fact. And Vanessa Williams said the same thing too. She said, if I play against the best male players in the world, they're going to cream me. They've been excommunicated, and they've been told that it's been made clear to them that this is unacceptable, and they usually retract this. And yet, you can't beat the biology out of people. The professionals like Navratilova and Venus and all the rest of them, they understand the truth because this is what they have to do. So this is what's going on. And we have an entire generation that's running from the left into a world where they get to act like we do in real life. And all we have to do is we have to give them permission. And by giving them permission, I simply mean, this is all bullshit, right? This whole, the whole thing is designed to make you feel like you're the only sane person in the world. So we're going to produce product that has classical values of heroism. We're going to produce stories of heroism, of strong men. We're going to provide father figures for men that didn't have fathers. And we're going to basically do a series of science fiction videos that show the qualities that are basically inherent in High Noon. And this is going to be insanely popular because that's what these young people, men and women both, are hungering for. They're hungering for somebody to tell them that no, the whole thing's a lie. It's a spell. They've cast a spell over you. Everybody is saying the same thing because nobody feels that way, but everybody else says that they do. And since everybody else says that they do, you say that you do too, which then becomes evidence for somebody else going through the same thing. So you can bring the whole thing down. It doesn't have to be spread. You don't have to work on it for 30 or 40 years. You simply can say, no, it's all bullshit. and we know it. And then it collapses, and the blue states just shatter, and they turn red because they are red. They are red. The millennial generation says and votes one way, but what they do is something else. And if it turned out that video games consisted of committees getting together, and that the big moment of truth at the end of a video game was that everybody gets to go out on the street with their protest signs and march down, Broadway. If that's what video games were about, I'd say we're done. But that's not what, and we're not done, because biology is biology. Conservatism is the belief that there are values that are eternal and built into the human condition, and that there are good and evil, and that evil can be fought, and that goodness has to be taught, and all of these other things. And when you look at the games that these young men are playing, these young men who've decided to go their own way, red pill young men, what you find is, if you look at the story arcs, what you'll find is they parachute into Normandy, and the tough sergeant says, "Who the hell are you? You're a weakling, you're a nothing, you're going to get us all killed." And by the time he's completed the 20 missions or whatever that consists of the run of this game, which is not like the other game, the game we're working on. The other game is players versus players. It's a sandbox. The computer doesn't do anything. But in Battlefield, for example, you do 20 missions or whatever the case may be. And over time, the reward for 50 hours of gameplay is having this strong male sergeant father figure say, "Good job, kid, I was wrong about you. You're a good soldier. You did well. You got guts. I'm proud of you." And this kind of thing just makes my hair stand on end, because I just, it's like, what do you say? The whole thing is propped up by this mutual lie. And all we have to do is say, it's a lie. You know it's a lie. Of course you know. You know which string is longer. They're jacking you around because they want to control you. They want your money, and they want your power. They're lying to you. It's child abuse. Come on. P.J. O'Rourke gave me permission to be a conservative. He gave me permission because I was hanging out with actors and a bunch of cool people and so on, and I had always thought that conservatives were these real squares and so on, and like the people who were seeing the string, I wanted to hang out with the cool people. And P.J. O'Rourke made it cool, made conservatism cool. He said, "Wait a minute, we're the ones that like to drive awesome cars real fast. They're the weenies that are against this kind of thing. Who's the squares here? They're the ones that want you to wear a bicycle helmet in the shower so you don't hurt yourself. Loud guns, fast cars, hot women. I've been saying it since I started this business. That's it. That's conservatism." And once that happened, once I realized it, then I said, okay, it's okay for me to be a conservative. I don't care if other people are liberal or not. Doesn't matter. I know what's true, And since the subject started out on dating, it turns out that virtually every woman, and even the most inhuman women, and that's a good term for them, even the women who have been so indoctrinated into this insane philosophy, even they cannot have the biology beaten out of them. Even the most left-wing feminist, abortion for the first 2 years after birth people, even these women know and admit that the men that back them, they have no interest in whatsoever, because they're not men. They're just a bunch of weaklings. They're the cuttlefish that are trying to look like women so they can get laid, and it doesn't work that way. So Loyalist says, "I'm 65 years old and I still sometimes catch myself thinking, what would my father think of me doing this?" Exactly. One of the other things that we're selling in this project, this Aurora project, and I've seen it happen with my own eyes in the year or two that we've been doing this, is we are setting standards of behavior, and people are responding to those standards in the same way that that young thugs responded to the guardian angels. We're daring people to do the right thing. We're saying this organization, this particular group of players in this particular game, you don't just get to walk into. Here's what we're about. Go read the website, which you can find at aurorarepublic.space. You'll find our entire philosophy there. If you are one of these people, we'd love to have you. We will put you on a probationary period, and then once we're convinced that you're made out of the right stuff, which is really simple. Common sense and decency, right? That's it. That's all. Common sense and decency. Once we sure you've got those things, then you're in. And if you start showing behaviors that goes against either of those values, then you're out. And people love it. There are organizations in this game that have tens of thousands of members, far more organized in terms of group events. They're doing much cooler stuff in terms of spaceships, flying formations with 30 or 40 people. We're not doing that yet. We will be. But the common sense and the decency is there. Sir Webben, since we're having a personal conversation today, says, I got common sense, but decency, I don't know if I want that trait anymore. Yes, you do. You don't want to live in a world without decency. Everything that we fight against is a world without decency. Nazi Germany is a world without decency. Communist Russia is a world without decency. Antifa are people without decency. University students who simply will burn a building down so that they don't have to hear a different opinion. There's no decency there either. You want decency, believe me. It's as important, if not more important, than common sense. So we're out there, and it's attracting people, and I'm listening to what they say. We still don't have anything like the funding we need for this. We're just now getting it ramped up after 7-8 months delay of what I thought it would take. But what I'm seeing is players, and since there are people here who are in that organization, I think he was here last time 2-3 weeks ago. But there's a player named Olimir who's a Greek. And he said he'd been playing this game on and off for a while, and he played a couple hours and so on. And then he found our organization, and he said, I see what you're trying to do here. I see what you're trying to do in the real world here, and I can't get enough of this. I'm here every night for 4 or 5 hours because of the company. And this is kind of a nice way to bow the whole thing together, tie the whole thing together in a little bow. It's the company. It's the quality of the people. It's not the quantity. It's the quality of the people. And when Merlin made that announcement about his wife being injured, that was an announcement that overlapped the Stratosphere Lounge, it overlapped BillWhittle.com, and it overlapped the Aurora Republic. And the response that he got didn't surprise me, but prompted him to tell me, I've never met people like this. And I said, me neither. This is why I do what I do. This is the reward. Is people like you. It's the reward. Foghorn here, who's a regular in Stratosphere Lounge, has been a fighter pilot for many years. He actually got to do what I always talk about doing and wanting to do. Sometimes I just feel like I have to hold up a picture of something of me flying formation in a long easy, because I've got 5 hours of formation time in a long easy, which is as close to a fighter as you can get in the civilian world. And I sometimes just want to put that on the monitors so he can see that I've done something that remotely approaches a shadow of what he does or has done. And then once a week at 7:30 p.m., he starts streaming video on how the military operates in this environment. He's done a number of videos just on communications discipline. What are the correct words? What is the minimum you can say? What do we say under what circumstances? Because when you have 30, 40 people in the same place on a server and everybody's talking at the same time, nothing happens. So we'll be out there doing that, and Foghorn or Chamdren will say, all right, calm discipline, or Simon says, we'll say calm discipline, and everybody shuts up. And then we just say what we need to say. And when people watch this, when they watch us doing this, they want to be a part of it. And this is the realization that's taken me 10 years, really. This is not only what we're selling to stay alive, this is what we're about. And when I say we, I mean all of us. I don't mean me, and I don't mean the staff here. I mean, this is it. We, as a group of people, understand what makes this country unique. We love what it does for us. We see how these freedoms work, and we understand that they're not automatic and they're not for free. We see the things that are eroding and destroying this foundation, and we want to do something about it. We want to do something. We don't know whether we can or not, and we can only do what we can do, but we have an obligation to do something to preserve all of this stuff. And the more of this I do, the more I talk to people, the more reactions, the more feedback I get, the more I become utterly convinced that this is, in fact, not only correct, but that the thesis is correct. And not only the thesis is correct, I'm sure the thesis is correct, that they're escaping to be conservatives. I'm also convinced that if you can give them permission and you can get that message out there enough, then people will simply say, well, you know what, I don't care. I don't care what you say about Bernie Sanders. I'm running a shipping company in this game. I'm making virtual money. It feels great. And to hell with you. And if we get enough people saying to hell with you, then you get the tipping point, right? You get this thing that's kind of in balance, and then some things start to move. And as they start to move, it tips a little more. And as they start to tip a little more, then more things start to move. And then it's just gone. It's over. It's done. They're done. We're not done. We're based on biology. We can be defeated, but you cannot. But we can be defeated politically, but you cannot beat the biology out of people. So ultimately, we win one way or another. So we need the resources to do that, and that's what we're going to do. So from now on, we're going to be working as a pack, not as a herd, not as a group, not as a community, and not as a collective, but as an association of individuals who have the same values and want them to be passed on to people and know that they're important and want to do it in a way that's effective rather than sending money to a candidate or John Cox or the Heritage Foundation or something. We need to talk to people. We need to talk to them where they are in the language that they understand, and we need to get them, and that's what we're going to do, by God. So that's the plan. Where can we find the link for the Aurora Republic 501? Well, I will post it here, and it is going to be spread around. Don't you worry. I'm going to double check this unless Foghorn beats me to it because he is the keeper of this, but I'm pretty sure it is. 1 second. Don't join the wolf pack. The wolf pack are a bunch of, under any circumstances, do not join the wolf pack. Join the Aurora Project, but do not join the wolf pack because the wolf pack are a bunch of flea-bitten, rabid, low-life alcoholics, drunks, and miscreants of all orders, and it's a bloody miracle. It's an act of grace that we allow them to live in our company. The lowest people of the low. So for God's sake, join the Republic, but stay away from the wolf pack because what a bunch of losers, and here it is. And miscreants and just terrible and just lousy pilots too, by the way, just crummy, lousy pilots, with their repeaters, and every now and then, by sheer luck, they manage to put the what really happens is by sheer luck, an enemy ship will fly into their ongoing stream of bullets, or sooner or later somebody flies in front of that, and then they have the satisfaction of seeing a hit, and then they feel, ooh, wow, this is great. And so that's how the Wolfpack fights. But the Eagles now, on the other hand, Air Combat Element 1, Ace 1, Squadron 1, which you can find at aurorarepublic.space under Defense, under the Structure menu. You find Eagle Squadron. Now you're talking about actual professionals. Now you're talking about people who don't let the enemy get into close range. We basically train, and we kill people beyond visual range. They don't get to visual range. We take them out. we got the biggest guns that they make. If they make a bigger gun, we'll switch. But we've got a weapon that's good to 8 kilometers out, energy weapon, and it's a one-hit weapon, 2 hits most. And these enemies start flying towards us, and we just pick them off. We pick them off. They don't even see us. So if you want to join the Republic, please do. If you want to join a fighter squadron, there's several to take your pick from. We're looking for squadron leaders for transport squadrons, support squadrons, any number of squadrons, electronic warfare squadrons. But I would encourage you simply to see if what's his name? It's a male model name. Hang on. John Boyd is the leader of the Eagle Squadron. The Wolf Pack is led by a guy. It's a stage name of some kind. I had it here, and I just can't remember it. He's a punk too. He's just a terrible, crappy, shitty pilot. Sorry, but that's just. Hang on a minute. Come on. What is this guy's name? Ethan Wright. So anyway, you go to aurorarepublic.space and you can look up the premier fighter squadron of the Aurora Republic, Ace 1 Eagles, which are effective because we train and we have talent and we don't spend our time drinking and sleep until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and by 7:30 there are no more bad guys, and we can come home and relax and smoke our pipes by the fireside. But nevertheless, see, one of the things you'll notice about the Wolfpack is that they're always making sexual references, and they're always making sexual references because they're children, and children do those kind of things. So I still don't have those pictures, but I will have them next week. Next week I will. No, not correct. Eagles versus Wolfpack is not Marines versus Navy. Eagles versus Wolfpack is like F-15Cs on a combat air patrol at 35,000 feet, engaging targets beyond visual range, versus the Civil Air Patrol in a Cessna 172 with the door closed and the seatbelt buckle outside banging against the side of the ship. That's the difference between the Eagles and the Wolfpack. We're also looking for gunners, by the way. The Vanguard is a big girl. She's a big, strong, twin-engine, highly powerful, extremely lethal weapons platform. And concurrent with our ability to destroy people beyond visual range, we also have a gun turret in the back, which mostly we use for decoration, but also can be used to knock people off of our tail if for some reason they get close enough to be within range of our guns. Then we'll take them off that way. But in any event, you'll be able to see all of this. Let me see. Since he's here, Ethan Wright, I think they made a decision. I think I heard Wolfpack decided that they're gonna go out in Anvil Arrows, which are cool little ships. Got to say, I'll show you a picture. They're really good looking vessels, and they look really cool. And as far as toy spacecraft go, they're very impressive. But in order to actually destroy something, you've got to basically hold the trigger down for 7.5 hours. And we don't have time for that. That's why we do the difficult things. We shoot at a long range with one shot, and we hit, and then we go home. We don't sit there all day going, Oh, look, I've got a shield down by 10%. No, we're like, next. I'll show you a picture of, here's what they fly, the Wolfpack flies. Hard to find a picture of it that you can take seriously. I'll use this one, I think. Yep. I'm going to lose the sound over this. I'm not going to take the time. So here's the Anvil Arrow that is flown by the Wolfpack. Give me one moment, please, to adjust the television. That's not it.
Right, very possible. Not bad at all.
All right. Nothing like a good glass of shuttle.
Do not let that deceive you. I'm working on it. Scene 4. It's hard to do this on the fly. You are going to be a video, and you're going to take a media source. Nope. You're going to take a media source. I'm still here. Hang on. Mm-hmm. Okay, look, to hell with this. We're just not going to do it. It's going to take too much time. If you want to, if you have access to the Google, you can type in Anvil Arrow to see what the little flea-bitten pups in the so-called Wolfpack fly. It's amusing, certainly. I mean, it's cute. It's the kind of the Anvil Arrow that the Wolfpack flies is the kind of thing that we would have under our wing on a rail in the Eagle Squadron. It's just one of many things that we would just fire off at, just for giggles. Now, if you want to see a real vehicle, if you want to look at a real, actual space superiority fighter, something that's actually going to, win wars rather than, prolong them, you might want to look up the Aegis Vanguard Warden. So I'll put this in the comment section here. So it's Anvil Arrow for Wolfpack. And it is the Aegis, which is a superb company. Aegis is by far the most sophisticated hardware in the world. Anvil is for people who can't afford real airplane. And the Aegis Vanguard Warden is for Eagles. So we'd love to have you. If you don't... the only thing I have to say about it is, if you're going to join the Wolfpack, knock yourself out and enjoy yourself. You can start right away. If you're gonna apply for Eagles, you've got to be a good shot. You absolutely have to know what you're doing. You don't even get to try out for us until you can routinely kill incoming ships beyond visual range. You just put them in the pipper, fire that big ass gun, and watch for the explosion. When you can do that with some regularity, then we will bring you aboard and teach you some tactics on how to actually make this happen. But anyway, enough about that. I will have some evidence. Yes, it is very much like the P-38 Lightning. It is very much like the P-38 Lightning. It is a... and by the way, you're not useless to the Aurora Republic if you can't fly. We need soldiers, we need policemen, we need administrators. We have Department of Justice, we have Department of State, we have, if you've got any kind of skill, we have Department of Commerce, Treasury. If you've got any kind of skill, of anything, we need you. So please come on over and sign up. It's not even necessary that you play the game. But I'll have some recruiting materials for next time, and that'll be fun, I suspect. Alrighty then, look at that. Hey, almost 3 hours. Made up a little bit for the lapse for the last 2 weeks. Sorry about that. I carried an M16, and you carry that. Here's one for you, Ethan. You're worthless and weak. Your squadron does nothing. They are nothing. I flew an Aegis Vanguard, and you fly that arrow. See how much fun it is? It's fun. All right, I'm on my way home, baby. That applies to Natasha. Anybody else who got a little thrill up their leg over that, I'm sorry to have to disappoint you. Is this a document? Oh God, something up there. Holy cow. I can hardly wait to see it. I'm sure it's extremely amusing. It's going to be full of sound and fury, the Wolfpack statement. Sound and fury signifying nothing. Anyway, we will see you later. Between now and then, of course, if you want to join us over at Aurora Republic, our mascot and team leader and all-around swell person, Lisa, will be handling the introduction to the organization. She'll take real good care of you. And if you like to drive a truck, there's a rule for you there too out there. So that'll do it. Thanks very much for joining us. No outro music. Baby, I'm heading home. And we will see you, I hope and imagine, next Thursday on this here Stratosphere Lounge show. Looking forward very much to opening up the new site next week so you can tell us what you think. And presumably the language will be a little different than what you told us about, I think, last time. So here we go. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.